if you want to support the show, any of the shows, either this or whichever show, I'm not on right now because this is just a blanket ad for all of them, and the website, you can go to bewareofspoilers.com. In the description for any of the episodes of Beware of Spoilers, there is the option to donate. If you don't want to donate that way, you can donate directly through the website. We do have that, mwpnews.com. And if you don't want to support that way, then going to mwpnews.com will help out because we have ads there. We don't want to keep it, where there's a lot of ads. There's a few ads. But the point is we want to make it so that way, we can sustain this for the long term. If people donate, we're never going to paywall anything, I don't think, as of right now. But if people, start donating, we'll start doing cooler and cooler stuff. Like donations are how we get to cover stuff like Tribeca and other, film festivals. And, we may be able to bring on more people to help out. So if you want to help out the show and you want more content from us, by all means, even just going and giving us a 5-star rating on Spotify helps out a lot. But that's it. That's the only ad we'll have on the podcast ever. But here's whatever podcast you're going to be listening to. Good morning, and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. And I think what we're going to do is, rather than do a finale episode and a catch-up episode and an ending episode, we're just going to do a let's talk about the season of The Girls on the Bus, which came to an end last Thursday. I have now seen the entire show. I'll say this. I think fundamentally I'm grappling with the question, is it better to have surprises or to well execute a narrative arc to the point that it's predictable? I'm not saying the issue with the FBI and with Sadie and with the hot white guy candidate whose name I'm forgetting, I'm not saying that's the predictable part, because I didn't see that coming. I thought for sure this was going to have something to do with the not Hillary stand-in. That was going to be the big overarching mystery, considering they spent a good amount of the show kind of telegraphing that, like, oh, something's going on with her, and it's, I think that the thing that this show really kind of did well was, look, they telegraphed a lot when it comes to what the plot was going to be. Because I think episode 2 or episode 3, I called where the show was going to end up for basically all the characters. I don't think I quite called Lola at that point, but I think very early on I was like, oh, Grace is going to figure out how to get work-life balance. Sadie is going to come into her own as an investigative reporter. Kimberlyn is going to, leave Liberty and try to appeal to more, centrist conservatives, and then you're going to have, I don't think I made a prediction for Lola, but Lola becoming a full-fledged journalist is a satisfying arc for her. Even if she, I'm not a fan of how they went about it. Because I think that, Lola is still my biggest sticking point for this show. I'm going to be honest. I think my biggest issue with this show, over the course of its entire run, is I don't think that they treated Lola, and the issue is, again, it's the same thing where, you hear people talk about, we've talked about, this is an inherently political show, so it's hard to not talk about the politics of it. But you talk about something like, oh, well, what about the right? Well, this show is entirely about the left, and if you're going to sit there and you're going to make the far left look silly, but not talk about the right, you're going to lean into some of the stereotypes that people may already believe. It's an interesting conundrum to put yourself in. And one that is kind of not necessary, if I'm being honest. Like, especially considering that, like, look, I would say that, you know, Lola probably could have been handled better over the course of this show. And I think that, like, her becoming part of the system and her, like, I don't think that quite feels right to where that character was. Especially considering it's like, look, I like her seeing the system and seeing how it works. Like, I think her getting press credentials is not necessarily the same thing. It's not like she's like, oh, and now I'm gonna take a job with Liberty, or oh, now I'm gonna take a job with the Sentinel, or, you know, or the Post, whatever the Washington Post stand-in is that Grace works for. Like, she's still independent, but she's, you know, official with press credentials. Which is, again, is an interesting development for her character. What else have we got? I think that, like, the idea that this is, like, scheduled where they have an idea for 3 seasons is interesting, considering the track record with Berlanti Productions in doing this, where you can get one really strong season, and we've seen this multiple times before, with The Flash, and with Arrow, and with Supergirl, and, you know, okay, we have a plan for 1 season, for 3 seasons. Okay, so we have this 3-season arc, and then after that, if they want to go on past that, it kind of goes off the rails. So hopefully they just stick to, if they have 3 seasons, they do 3 seasons. It's not like, and now here's season 4. I mean, look, obviously the next season will be about the General, and how that works. I'm interested to see how that goes. I'm like, if they're going to be actively investigating him, now we haven't even touched on who the Republican is in this show. This has been entirely about the Democratic primary. We don't know who Hot White Guy is going to be running against at the end of this show, in the next season, if it gets renewed. We don't know who he's running against. If he's running against a Trump analog, you get into an interesting situation, and I think they're going to. It's going to be a Trump analog. Because if what's her name, Walker, is a Hillary stand-in and she loses, and a lot of what happened in this world is kind of telegraphed against that, like, the idea that she is also, what's it called? Like, the idea that she would have lost to a Trump analog, I think is the point I'm trying to make. Although, let's not get into it, but, I mean, whatever, it is what it is. Point being, if you look at kind of where that leaves, you know, the show for next season, if we have a guy who's lying about his military service record with Hot White Guy, which is one of the big allegations, plus all of his money coming from one big tech donor, all his donor base is not real, like, all of this stuff is kind of interesting, although a little far-fetched, because I'm fairly certain that would have been easy to figure out before the convention. Like, it is what, like, but the thing is, too, it's like, at the same time, fucking Santos got elected before anyone looked into that. Like, no newspaper, like, the New York Times is a newspaper of record, and, like, even if he was outside of New York City, like, but he's not, he served part of Queens, and they did no research into his background, and here we are with fucking Santos. Like, if that's the case, it puts them in a weird situation, because now, like, that's what they're gonna have to grapple with in this next season. Do we release this information for the good of the country that will lead to an outcome that may be bad for the country, if they all fundamentally believe that the current incumbent Republican, which could just be an incumbent Republican, it could just be a McCain type, it could just be a Bush type, it could, I mean, and just a Bush type. Bush was not great, but, like, a more quote-unquote institutional Republican, you know, if that's what they're dealing with, then, you know, who's to say that this is a situation that it's worth bringing this information to light. And therein lies what I think the conflict next season is going to be. I think the conflict next season is going to be, as more information comes out about this guy, like, is it really in the best interest of everyone to bring this information to light before this election? And that's what we're going to grapple with. And I think that to that end, very early on, I would say probably in the cold open for the next season, they're going to introduce They're going to introduce the Republican incumbent. And then from there we get to see where it goes. But yeah, I did really enjoy this show, and I do hope we get more of this in the future. I think that a really interesting thing to do would be to have Kimberlyn go independent and see where that takes her. As a more conventional conservative, like, that would be an interesting place to go with that character. And as I've said as we've gone along, she's consistently the most interesting and conflicted character on this show. And the actress, Christina Elwood, I think is her name, or Elmore, she did fantastic in that role. She is just outstanding, doing everything that role demanded of her. Yeah, this is a very strong contender for Show of the Year. Although X-Men 97 wraps up today, and we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, I think that this is a show worth watching. If you like political shows, if you like shows about journalism, this is a show for you. And I think that they just knocked it out of the park this season. And look, it's like, what's her name? Melissa Benoist is also so good in this show the entire way through. Like, she carries everything that this show needs so well that it's just, I was just kind of like, oh, she can act. It's good to see her getting more work, but she can act outside of, just playing Supergirl. And look, let's be real, she's kind of playing she did play a journalist for the 8 years that Supergirl was on TV. And that show was a success for the CW, albeit expensive success, but it was a success nonetheless. And I think she has experience doing this. She nailed it here. She did great here. I'm very interested to see where this show goes in the future, if it gets picked up, and if it does get picked up, where it gets picked up to. But we'll wrap up there for today. This is a 4 on our scale. I gotta remember to say that every time. I always forget. Tell your friends about this show. Tell your friends about the website, mwpnews.com. The more people go there, the more advertising revenue we get, and you can buy stuff on there to support the shows. We don't like asking for just donations. We like, we sell you something, so you get something for your money. So there we are. Yeah, so we'll be back later today with Back to Black. I think that's the name of the movie. The Amy Winehouse biopic. Back to Black. Then, what's it called? We also have tomorrow, I think we have If, and Saturday we have I Saw the TV Glow. So we have quite a few things coming up in the near future. And then there's also X-Men 97 wrap-up. As we kind of, it's good that we're kind of clearing the slate in advance of June, which is just that should be all in one episode, because that's being dropped all at once. And there's one other big show in June. Oh, House of the Dragon. But we'll wrap up there for today. And until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.